All right, so today we're diving into the incredible physical geography of India. And let me tell you, it's not just one landscape. It's like a dozen different worlds all packed into a single subcontinent, from the highest mountains on Earth to some of its most ancient, stable plateaus. So here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off by looking at this fundamental geological tension that really defines the whole landmass. From there, we'll take a tour, soaring through the Himalayan crown, dropping down into the fertile plains, exploring that ancient southern plateau, and finally, checking out the deserts, coasts, and islands that frame the whole thing. So let's start with the big picture. The whole story of India's landscape really boils down to this amazing clash between the super old and the surprisingly new. So let me ask you something just to get us started. Right now, where you are, what's the terrain like? Is it flat as a pancake, or are you surrounded by hills? That very question gets right to the heart of India's physical variation, which has pretty much every major feature you can find on Earth. And right here, this is the core idea. So up in the north, you've got the Himalayas. Geologically speaking, they're the new kids on the block. They're all folded up, still growing, and honestly a pretty unstable zone with these massive peaks and super fast rivers. But then you go south, and it's a completely different story. You've got the Peninsular Plateau, which is one of the most ancient, most stable blocks of land on the entire planet. We're talking old rocks, gentle, rounded hills, and these really wide valleys. Total opposites. All right, let's zoom in on our first stop and see how this all comes together as we explore the most dramatic feature of all, that towering Himalayan crown up in the north. Just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, the Himalayas stretch out in this massive arc for 2,400 kilometers. I mean, that creates one of the most rugged and just imposing mountain barriers you'll find anywhere in the world. Now, what's really cool is that the Himalayas aren't just one single wall of mountains. Nope. They're actually three distinct parallel ranges, all running alongside each other. The one furthest north is the Himadri, or the Great Himalayas. That's the big one, with an average height of 6,000 meters. Just south of that, you get the Himachal, or Lesser Himalaya, a really rugged system that's famous for its valleys. And finally, on the very outer edge, you've got the Shiwaliks, which are basically made of all the sediments that have washed down from the bigger ranges. And believe me, when we call the Himadri the Great Himalayas, we're not kidding. It's home to the most prominent peaks in the world. Sure, Mount Everest is over in Nepal, but look at this. India's home to its own absolute giants, like Kanchenjunga, Nanga Parbat, and Nanda Devi, all of them just soaring to unbelievable heights. Okay, let's come down from those icy peaks for a minute, because as you move south, you walk into a completely different world, the Great Northern Plains. We're talking vast, flat, and incredibly fertile land. This is the agricultural heart of the country. You know these plains? They exist because of the Himalayas. Over millions and millions of years, three absolute giant river systems, the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, carried all this rich silt down from the mountains. That's what created this massive fertile plain. And it didn't just become the country's breadbasket. Its soil and water made it the cradle of ancient civilizations. Okay, here's a key word you need to know for this area, Doab. It literally means two waters. It's talking about that super fertile slice of land you find sandwiched between two rivers. The whole northern plain is basically just a series of these rich Doabs, and that's exactly why it's such an agricultural powerhouse. This is where it gets really interesting, though. Geologists don't just see one big plain, they classify it. You've got Bunkar, which is the older soil. It sits a little higher, kind of like a terrace above the floodplains. And then you have Kadar. This is the new stuff, the fresh deposits in the floodplains themselves. It gets renewed almost every single year, which makes it insanely fertile and absolutely perfect for intensive farming. All right, so we've seen the young plains. Now let's head south to India's geological foundation. We're entering the Peninsular Plateau, a tableland of ancient crystalline rocks. We're talking stuff that was once part of the massive supercontinent Gondwanaland. This isn't just old, it's the mineral heart of the country, the engine for a lot of its industry. But this huge plateau isn't just one big flat thing. The Narmada River basically slices it into two main parts. North of the river, you have the Central Highlands, and to the south, you get that famous triangular landmass, the Deccan Plateau. So the Deccan Plateau has these mountain ranges running down its sides, called the Ghats. The Western Ghats on the west coast are higher, and they form this continuous wall. When the monsoon winds hit them, they're forced to rise, they cool down, and bam! They dump all their rain. That's called orographic rain, and it's why that coast gets so much rainfall. But the Eastern Ghats? Totally different. They're lower, they're broken up, with big rivers cutting right through them, on their way to the Bay of Bengal. All right, let's wrap up our tour by hitting the edges of the subcontinent. From the arid west all the way to the long coastlines and the scattered islands, each of these places has its own unique character and, of course, its own economic importance. So if you head out to the Great Indian Desert, you'll see these incredible things called barkhans. They're these beautiful crescent-shaped sand dunes, all sculpted by the wind. It's that classic, stunning desert landscape that you'd picture, and it covers huge areas out there. Now remember those Ghats? Well, on the other side of them, you have these narrow coastal strips, which are major hubs for trade and fishing. The western coast alone is split into 3 sections: the Konkan coast up north, the Kanad Plain in the middle, and the famous Malabar coast down south. And we can't forget the islands. India has 2 totally distinct groups, and they couldn't be more different in how they were formed. The Lakshadweep Islands off the coast of Kerala are actually made of small coral deposits. But the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, way out in the Bay of Bengal, are thought to be the tips of a massive underwater mountain range. And get this for a cool fact. Those underwater mountains aren't totally asleep. India's only active volcano is found on Barren Island, right there in the Andaman and Nicobar group. So, let's step back for a second. We've seen just how diverse this place is, right? We've got massive peaks, fertile plains, ancient plateaus, tropical islands. But here's the real takeaway. The most powerful idea isn't just the contrast. It's how all these incredibly different pieces actually fit together like a perfect puzzle. The source material puts this perfectly. It says that the unique features of each region aren't isolated. They work together in a system that enriches the entire country. And here's exactly how that works. It's a brilliant system. The mountains, they're the source of water and forests. The plains, they're the breadbasket, the granaries of the country. That ancient plateau, it's a massive storehouse of minerals that fuel industry. And of course, the coasts and islands are perfect for fishing and all the port activities. You see, each part has a job to do. This amazing diversity is what creates this incredibly rich and functional whole. And that kind of brings us full circle to a final thought. I asked you at the beginning what kind of terrain you live in, so let's end with this. How do the physical features of your home, wherever you are in the world, how do they connect to and support the wider country you live in? It's a pretty cool way to think about how geography, in the end, shapes all of our lives.